Hi guys, this is Eli here with Ancestral Recall, and today we're going to be doing the last of the colored sections of the cubes. The cube videos I've been doing, so I am excited to show it to you guys. And today we're going to be looking at green. I'm not going to start off explaining my philosophy with green, I'd rather just show you, and then I'll explain what's going on. So we're going to start off with the creatures, and then the spells, going from low mana cost to high mana cost. So we're going to start off with a classic Basking Root Wall, which can be often played for free if you've got some random discard outlets. This is a classic card. I'm really excited to see it come out with Vintage Masters. Elves of Deep Shadow. Yep. Classic from the dark. I've got the art from Ravnica here. Kind of wish that they had rethemed it, but I figure Magic only wants so many elves that tap for G that produce enemy colored mana. Jiraga Tree Speaker, another amazing one drop, although really, I mean, it takes a serious investment, but wow, once this guy gets going, I mean, this is one, in my opinion, it's the best mana accelerant for green that is fairly inexpensive. I mean, obviously, Mox Emerald is pretty awesome too, Soul Ring, but yeah. Jiraga Warcaller, technically a one-drop, but it never is. Yep, so I want to emphasize that yes, there is an elvish theme in this cube. Just a little bit. So here's my Elf Lord. I only think I have this and Imperious Perfect, but, you know, the elves might be the best tribal card in terms of support in the deck. Land War Elves. We've got some classic 7th edition art, and then the old school Ansomatics from ABU, although I'm pretty sure this one's from this one's from 4th edition. Quirion Ranger. Another guy who can be actually really awesome ramp. Yeah. There's no Stasis in the cube, which Stasis was the original card that Quirion Ranger was supposed to host, but it turns out that it's just a solid card on its own. Beastbreaker of Bala Ged. I think level up is a really fun mechanic. It's certainly not powerful enough for most cubes, but this guy's just right in this one. Bramblewood Paragon. There's a modest amount of warriors in this cube, so yep, this is an experiment. I don't think it usually pays off, but hey, it's a pretty good bear. Druid of the Anima. Yep, so tapping for 3 colors, nothing wrong with that. Yeah, green is the most flexible color in this cube in order to enable splashing, because if you guys saw the first video where I'm taking a look at the lands, the mana support is much less generous than powered cubes. That's okay, because I want there to be hard decisions. Alright, Dryad Sophisticate, non-basic land walk, pretty good ability against a bunch of draft decks. Riverboa, Island Walk, Regenerate. This is such a really powerful 2-drop from the old days, and I've got a Visions version here, so it's definitely a classic. Sakura Tribe Elder, nothing wrong with this. I mean, it's just almost a strictly better version of Rampant Growth. Stranglewood Geist, another amazing 2-drop. I got a little bit of Undying in the cube. I think there only 1 or 2 cards, but I like to give diversity to as many mechanics as I can. And yeah, this is a good one. Iridian Emissary. Interesting variants on acceleration. Wall of Roots. Yet another accelerant. This is definitely one of the best against aggressive decks. Wild Mongrel. I've talked a lot about this guy in the past, and yeah, in this cube, not a lot of ways to really maximize him the same way you did in Odyssey Lock, but still okay. Woodland Changeling, a little more tribal support. Here we've got a little bit of Changeling. Call of the Herd makes 2 elephants over 2 turns as long as you're hitting your mana. This is a great card on curve, and yet it doesn't get played in power cubes. I don't understand. I mean, this is just an awesome card. Champion of Lambolt. Lamholt. Ooh. This card is actually really scary, especially in token decks. I'm happy it's not an elf because it's already got enough synergy on its own. Eternal Witness. Yeah. One of the most powerful green 3-drops. If you've got a really abusive deck, this is awesome. In a deck that's less abusive, well, whatever. It's a little below the curve in terms of aggro, but card advantage is still huge. Fierce Empath. A little seen green tutor. And this is going to get you something that will rock the table. I think this card is awesome. It's a solid card in EDH, and I like it so much in EDH I wanted to play it here. Ghostlit Nourisher. It's an onboard trick that requires a major investment. If you want a really good version of this card, Non-Taco Disciple is the way to go. This guy, I mean, 3 to activate, that's a lot, but sometimes you might get a lot of use out of the channel. Grazing Gladeheart. Here we've got a landfall trigger. This is green at its more passive, more tranquil side, and I dig that stuff. Green doesn't have to be straight out all-in aggression. Green has subtlety to it. Hunting Moa. We've got Echo and some interesting interactions. Hunting Moa can turn your offense on, or it can trade and help out the rest of the team. It's a very helpful big flightless bird. And thank goodness it's a nice flightless bird. Not too many of those in Magic. The Imperious Perfect. I wonder if there was an inspiration here from Kurt Hennig. Amazing Elf Lord. In my opinion, the best in Magic. Jagged Scar Archers. Here's something that will reward Elf players, and it's a solid card against blue and white in this cube because there are quite a few good 2 or 3 power flyers in limited. This is a really amazing card, but it's obviously not splashable, so that double green keeps people off. Hey, it's that Homelands card, Leaping Lizard. The original mascot of the original Magic Online software developers. Yeah, I already made jokes about this in my Homeland video. Not a fantastic card, but hey, I want to represent all the expansions, and this represents Homelands. Leatherback Baloth for green, green, green. This is a pretty good deal. 4 power for 3 mana. Awesome. 5 toughness? Are you kidding me? This is way ahead of the curve. Except, you know, it demands a very serious color commitment. Non-Taco Vigilante. Really nice naturalized variants. It came in the set with naturalized. Yes, I feel good about my verbiage now. Since I'm talking about green and I've passed through Onslaught in my main episodes, I can actually talk about naturalized and not feel incredibly self-conscious about it. As opposed to Disenchant. Simian Grunts. This was a killer card in Urza's Block Draft. It was the green creature removal by flashing him in and then making silly noises. It embarrassed and humiliated attacking opponents. And I don't actually endorse imitating simians when playing this card, but if you really want to, it's there as an option. Phalid Germinator. Must not make Trogdor reference. Yeah. Time Spiral Draft was one of my favorite formats, especially the block, because I could play the Thalids. It was very goobery in that I was putting lots of coins onto the table and then making lots of tokens at the Big Magic Nagoya, which was the place I usually drafted that block, along with a bunch of people who had made GP and occasionally World's Top 8s. I ran the table for quite a few weeks with Saprolings. It took him a while, but eventually Naoki Nakata, who finished 4th in, I think it was 2008 or 2009 Japanese Nationals, back when he was just, you know, a little teenager coming in and playing, he eventually cut me Thalids in the draft, and I still beat him, But man, Nakata was definitely one of my favorite regular players. I always seem to have the drop on him, but he was really, really solid, and I was not surprised when he came out of nowhere and made the Japanese national team. Thornscape Battle Mage. Here's a gold card in disguise. I mean, if you're playing mono green, it's pointless, but the splash giving you the ability to blow up an artifact or shock something, it's well worth it. Troll Ascetic. Here's our first card with hexproof, not counting Alamula. Yep. Ascetic, one of the classics of Meriden. Viridian Shaman, another Meriden classic. I chose this one instead of Viridian Corruptor, which is the version with Infect, because there's just not enough Infect in the cube to really make it stand out. There's an exception coming up, but at 4 mana, Blastoderm. Man, I know that Calciderm in Time Spiral Block did nothing, but Blastoderm was a key component in Zvi's My Fires deck. Man, I loved Blastoderm. It hit so hard. Oh, Wood Elves. Alright, this is not perfectly in order. We have yet another ramp card. This one, if it dies, who cares? It's a perfect chump blocker. It's a fun accelerant in green. You have my Elder. Wow, it used to be a terror in Standard, and then people kind of forgot about it. Then when EDH came rolling in early on, this was a powerful card, especially in multicolored decks, but later on, I feel like it's been somewhat outmoded. There's more and better ramp cards, but for this cube, it's right. Alright, back to our 4-drops. We have, oh, here's an Infect guy. Blight Widow. I like Giant Spider, but I wanted to pack in just one little extra, so I figured Reach plus Infect. Drum Hunter. Drawing cards is a green thing now. I like that. This guy's not the best accelerant, but the cool thing about him is drawing a card happens the turn that you play Giant Fatty. That's awesome. Forgotten Ancients. I'm going to talk quite a bit about this in my Scourge review. This is the first card that the player community designed. Really powerful, really awesome in multiplayer games, and yeah, I did want this cube to have some elements that are particularly exciting for multiplayer formats. Yeah, you can't go multiplayer without Forgotten Ancient. Giant Spider. Kind of vanilla. I have an unlimited version here. If you guys look very carefully, you can see the over-accentuated bevels on the edges. Haru Onna. Yeah. 4 mana, draws a card, 2/1 body. Occasionally, you might find the spirit to interact with this, but no, I just wanted a 4 mana guy that lets you draw a card. Well, girl. Yeah. Female synonym. Imperiosaur. This is awesome. In my heart, I do like playing dinosaurs. The Timmy and me enjoys this card, although ramping with creatures will not help you get him out. So that drawback has fooled green players once or twice while playing this cube. Lisa Lana Huntmaster, another elf enabler. This one spitting out tokens on top of the 3/3 body. It's just value, not the best value in the world, but it works. Mold Shambler. So here is a great green staple. You get to blow up something of Artifice, or even a land. It can even blow up a Planeswalker, which is pretty awesome, although the cost 6 is a little high. Penumbra Spider. I love this guy in Invasion Block, and when they reprinted it in Modern Masters, I was happy to get it in the new frames. Yeah, it's almost strictly better than Giant Spider because you get 2 deaths out of it. I really like spiders in Magic. I'm not a fan of them in real life, but I certainly think that spiders are one of the classic value deals of the old days that still are pretty valuable today. Phantom Centaur. Ooh, this guy hits hard. And he will relent eventually, but it's almost always a 2-for-1. Maybe not a 3-for-1, but certainly a 2-for-1. And Pro Black means that a bunch of cube decks are just going to see this guy and immediately facepalm. Ravenous Baloth. Classic fatty. Sacking a beast, gaining 4 life, good deal. I feel really bad that I didn't shoot footage of me talking about this. I mean, I did, but it got lost when I was shooting my Onslaught videos. So anyway, just want to let you guys know, yeah, this is really awesome, especially if you were able to play something like Patriarch Spitting. Now, Patriarch Spitting didn't work, unfortunately, because you couldn't get enough beasts onto the table and then sacrifice them. It was just too slow in tempo. But if that had been a thing, man, I would have loved it. Sosuke, son of Seshiro. Yep, so very few snakes in this cube, so this is not particularly exciting. It's just good value, and hey, it's a legendary guy with a fun, interesting Death Touch variant. Stampeding Sero. There are a couple cards which will allow you to get some combos off in this cube, not many. The best one, I think, is probably Fierce Empath. Haruona is nothing to sneeze at either. Wickerbow Elder. Okay, there's another thing that you wouldn't mind bouncing to your hands. So, this card, almost as good as Indrik Stomp Howler, in that you get to play the turn earlier, and it hits its full potential a little bit later. Yeah, perfectly fine card. Fun card from Eventide. Wolfbriar Elemental. This is a powerful green card. I want to reward green players for really going green, and multi-kicker green, paying a green on top to get a 2/2, and you can do it as many times as you want. Super powerful. You're definitely gonna like this if you are the green player and you're drafting Conspiracy this weekend. So this is the original from Zendikar. Is it Worldwake? Yeah, that's Worldwake. Acidic Slime. Straightforward Death Touch. Trades with one of your opponent's awesome ground pounders and blows something up. This is a natural 2-for-1. Magic players have a very hard time saying no to that. Ant Queen. So here's a token producer. The thing I like about it is this is a great mana sink because you can spend lots and lots and get lots of tokens. They're not big, but that's fine. Beast Attack. Another tactical card, very similar to Simian Grunts. This is keeping your opponents on their toes, very much like Giant Growth, although at a slightly higher cost. So it's straightforward. You get to play it twice. 5 mana for a 4/4 beast isn't great, but when you get to do it twice, yeah, now we're talking. Changeling Titan. This isn't really a good card in this cube, but for people who are interested in playing around with Tribal, maybe they might find a way to apply it. I haven't quite figured out all the ways to exploit it, and that's okay. Indrik Stomp Howler, I already talked about this with Wickerbow Elder. I think that's the better card. This one, not quite as good, but it's one of the earliest really solid static cards to come into play with the additional Naturalize effect. Mastodon! I want to sound like a Power Ranger when I'm calling out this card's name. Yep. Not super impressive. That toughness isn't amazing, but it can give your fatties trample, and that's something that can win games. Okina Nightwatch. I was playing this just last night in Kamigawa block draft on Magic Online. And this is actually a really scary 5-drop sometimes, especially when you couple it with card draw. Spike Colony. So, I really liked the spikes when I was playing kitchen table stuff back in Tempest Saga era. I did not play in tournaments at the time. Spike Colony just had so many potential combat shenanigans. I felt like a general every time I played it because I could dictate the flow of fights. This is really powerful. in a low-power creature brawling format. We'll see how often that comes up with this cube, though. Fellow Knight Hermid. This is not... in some ways it's better, and in some ways it's worse than Deranged Hermit. The initial investment is a little cheaper because you're paying 8 mana over several turns as opposed to 5 and then 5. Of course, when you're playing Deranged Hermit, you want to bounce that thing as much as possible. Fellow Knight Hermit requires you to play it a little more honestly. Yeah, Deranged Hermit was nuts. Cloud Thresher. A really terrifying Lorwyn insta-creature. You only get one shot out of this, but it will damage those little flyers, and yeah, it happens to have reach. This is a really awesome deal. Soul of the Harvest. 6 mana, draws you cards every time a non-token creature comes into play. That ability is awesome. And tack that onto a 6/6 body. Yeah, this is what green should feel like. Verdaloth the Ancients, a great mana sink in the late game, spitting out a bunch of saplings, and yeah, pumps up other tree folk. There's virtually no tree folk in here. But yeah, we got a classic Invasion Legend. Craw Giant. Ho ho ho! Midgets! You think you can stand in my way? Craw Giant kinda sucks, but I love reading that part of the flavor text, and Rampage is one of those obscure keywords, so it's a fun card to look at. You're not gonna play it. Garruk's Horde. Card draw in a different way on a 7/7 body with trample for 7. Yeah, this is something worth ramping up to. And this cube needs things to ramp to. There's a lot of ramp, and you can ramp up to big things in other colors, but we need to have big green fatties as well. Krosan Tusker. This is always a fascinating choice. In the early game, are you going to cycle it to help smooth your mana out plus get another card? Or are you going to sit around and wait for a 6/5 body? 6/5 body for 7 mana. Nothing to write home about, but sometimes the bulk is going to do the job. Moldgraph Monstrosity. This 7-drop might be a little better, so sorry for the glare, but we've got... So, mana cost is 7. It's 8/8 tramps. When it dies, you get to return 2 creature cards from your yard directly onto the battlefield. Now, it's random, so it's not perfectly optimal, but it's still a really amazing 7-drop. I'm ashamed I never got to play it outside of this format. Pelakka Worm from Rise of the Eldrazi. This guy's going to be getting reprinted in Conspiracy, so a whole bunch of new players are going to get a chance to fall in love with this guy. I know I did. Coming into play, gaining 7 life. It's better than Stream of Life. 7/7 body plus Stream of Life, and when it dies, you draw a card. This is like Solemn Simulacrum on steroids. Although it does cost a metric crap ton. Roar of the Worm, yeah. I know. Most of my token producers here have been in the creature slots, so yeah, I put it there. Yep. So it can make 2 6/6 tokens, or you can discard it, just get 1, but it's on the cheap. Spearbreaker Behemoth. Green is going to get there eventually. Life finds a way. And when you've got this out, your fatties are going to find a way to destroy them, because what are you going to do? How are you going to kill them? This is a scary question, and your opponents are going to have to answer it, or die. Venom Spout Brachus. Yeah, this is a little obscure. We've got a morph here. So this morph is the bane of flyers. I mean, it can take down a dragon on the attack. It can take down most demons on the attack. The morph cost is pretty high. So it's very unusual to pay 7 and then wipe out a flyer in the middle of combat. But yeah, Brachus, It's an interesting card, certainly not the best green creature in the cube, but it occasionally has a role. Avatar of Might. Straightforward, big fatty. It's rare to get it out for 2 mana, but in multiplayer games, it can happen. Liege of the Tangle. Now here's a great 8-drop, because if it connects, you're going to get so many 8/8s. This is just a silly, powerful card. I am scared crapless when my opponents play the Momirvig. Verdant Force. The interesting thing to understand about this card is every upkeep. Jamie Wakefield's favorite fatty, you can't go wrong with Verdant Force. Emerald Charm. Yep, now we're getting into the green spells. If you guys see the sizes of the stacks here, green is very creature heavy in this cube, and the spells not quite as much, but we still got a fair smattering, so let's talk about them. Emerald Charm lets you untap something, destroy a global enchantment, which is to say something that's not an aura, or you can make something lose flying until end of turn. I have bad memories of this being played on me and extended. Channel! There are X spells in this cube. There's a channel in this cube. I want players to dream. Genju of the Seethers. This is another way for green to get fatties onto the table. The ability of it to come back to hand if the 4/4 dies. That is a really interesting question. Yeah, most players don't know what to make of this when they draft it, so I haven't yet seen it exploited to its fullest, but I think it's worth a try. Keen Sense. Green Curiosity. What else can we say? I love the planar chaos and how it does a role reversal of the original storyline. Rancor. I really wanted to put 2 in the cube, but I said to myself, no, I really should save that for effects that are just staples. Land War Elves. Brothers Yamazaki. Okay, that's not a staple effect, but they're super interesting in multiples. Worldly Tutor. So here we've got classic green effect. Go get the creature that you want. You're skipping a draw for it, but it's still awesome. Farseek. I can be a bit of a jerk. Why? Because there are no Ravnica shocks or any of the original ABU revised dual lands for this to fetch. No, I didn't put it in the Shadowmoor lands that also have the basic land types. Yeah, so this really does exactly what it says. And it doesn't fetch out anything else, just basics. Fertile Ground. There's not a lot of untapping shenanigans in this cube, so you can really exploit this, but it's a nice color fixer. It was really good in Invasion block. Rampant Growth. Everybody knows what it does. Very straightforward. Regrowth. Power green spell. I wanted to put some interesting green spells in here. And Regrowth, just getting back something, yeah. Is it worth splashing? Sometimes. Resize. Here's a giant growth effect that's... You have to manage your mana carefully when it's in the yard, because, yeah, you do want to get it back. It's really exciting. But, yeah, this is a very finesse-heavy giant growth. But I like to reward finesse. Seal of Primordium. We have Seal of Cleansing. I figure why not put the green counterpart that comes later in. Sprout Swarm. Okay, now this is a spell. I didn't put it in the creature pile because Sprout Swarm gets played so many times in the game. It's ridiculous. Sprout Swarm is so awesome. I've won so many drafts in Time Spiral with it. I was really disappointed because it was not in Modern Masters, but that's okay. I think it's probably too powerful to be printed as a common. I don't get it, but it really should be at least an uncommon. Probably, of all the Cards of Future Sight, this is the one that I first picked the most, and I've almost never regretted it. Sylvan Might. So here we have +2/+2 for 1 green, and the flashback. Your opponent knows that it's there, so it makes blocking for them difficult the second time, and you're probably gonna do better than trade the first time out. So this is value. Utopia Vow. Green pacifism? What? Yeah. It's not nearly as good as pacifism because it gives your opponent a land effectively. That feels green. And it does something that green doesn't get access to on a general basis. But yeah, this is cool. Elephant Guide. This is also getting reprinted in Conspiracy, which is funny because I've had this cube list for about a year. Elephant Guide for a green aura, pumping a guy +3/+3, and then getting a little bit of card advantage back when the creature dies. This is a great card. Really solid. Harrow. I love you. Won't you tell me your name? So this is a great color fixer. This is one of the few color fixing effects in the cube that's really efficient. I loved playing this in Invasion Block, but I decided to go with the original art from Tempest here. Kodama's Reach. See that arcane? Just don't bother. It's not even worth thinking about. But yeah, Kodama's Reach, really powerful. You can't go wrong with this card in green. It's a super ramp card that's going to set up your turn 4 and 5 very well. Molting Skin. This is a bizarre green enchantment that has seen print twice, I think. Yet returning it to its hand as a cost to activate it. It's unusual, but it's repeatable. It's one of those weird cards that goes late, but sometimes it's incredible value. Creeping Mold. Straightforward and a land destruction effect. There are some Karus in this cube, and Creeping Mold will prey on them. This is not a nice card, but sometimes we've got to be a little cruel. Explosive Vegetation. Veggies. I know this is an EDH staple, and there's some familiarity with this card, so I'm happy to put it in here. Garruk Wildspeaker. One of the 2 planeswalkers in this cube. The other one is Elspeth Knight Errant. This Garruk, I don't know what to say about Garruk. I remember when he was the most valuable planeswalker when Lorwyn first came into Standard. People were paying $20 for him. I sold a Japanese foil of it for around $60 soon after the set's release. I remember opening that pack very vividly because it was the first time I opened the Japanese language pack, which had a rare and then the same rare in foil. And that's, these days it's $4 or $5. Not a big deal. It's been reprinted at death. But yeah, I was a big fan of Garruk when it came out. Living Terrain. A card from Prophecy. I really don't like Prophecy, but yeah, I didn't even put the Prophecy version in here because I felt like the templating was a little cleaner. I like the art on this card. 5/6, effectively hasty fatty for 5 mana. Yes, it's a 5 mana spell. Don't pay attention to that cost. But this is a really cool green effect. Reap and Sow. The cool thing about Reap and Sow is if you tutor for a land, you get to pick any land in your cube. Well, any land that you've drafted. Entwine, it happens sometimes. This is a fun card. I don't see this being picked very early, but it's a green effect. Shard Convergence. If you want to play 5 colors, this will help you get there. I mean, drawing 4 lands for 4 mana, I guess that's a pretty good deal. Overrun. Yeah, of course. This is a green cube. How can you not put one of the classic green finishers in a cube? This is a combat-oriented cube, and Overrun is one of the best green spells in Limited ever. So I'm happy it's here. Savage Conception. Here's an interesting one. Retrace. The deal is never that good, but the ability to do it instead of, playing a land in control-ish decks, it appeals. This is a 23rd or a 24th card. Strength of Cedars. Here's a giant growth. A really big one. A really, really big one in the late game. Yeah, that's fun. I know, there are better ones out there. And large is better, but I just wanted to put a little more arcane in here. It's one of those things that players say, why is that there? In this cube, Glacial Ray's in here. Sylvan Bounty. Okay, this is a land cycling card. That's the big deal. Gaining 8 life for 6 mana, not a very good deal. But land cycling, it gets you what you need. Desert Twister. Breaking the color pie since 1993. This originally saw print in Arabian Nights, and it's one of those aberrations that if you just throw enough mana at something, you can get to blow up. That's what Desert Twister means. Epic Proportions. Here's a pump spell that sticks around because it's an aura that you can play with Flash, +5/+5 trample. Yeah, this is a good deal. I'm much happier with this in my cube than Giant Growth because this gives you better stories. Tooth and Nail. Sure, why not? If you've got 9 mana, go and get your best 2 fatties and dump them right out. This is excitement. Worm Calling. Buyback, make a guy. Now I'm going to tell you, Sprout Swarm is much better, but for casual players, the idea of paying green plus X for green 3 and X to make a guy of unbounded size, that appeals. And I want to give Timmy something to play, and Timmy generally likes green historically. And our last spell on that theme, Gelatinous Genesis, putting XX green ooze creatures onto the battlefield. Casting cost is XX and green. I play this on Magic Online in my Eldrazi green deck because sometimes that is exactly what I need. I need to get out 3 tokens just to stay alive for a turn while I spit out Emrakul. So this is here. I find it's a fun card, not very powerful. So yeah, looking at this green, here's the thing. Green is the worst color in this cube. I can say that unequivocally. There are some powerful cards, but there's very little evasion. The deals on the creatures are slightly better than in the other colors, so if you want to do a Savage Beatdown, it's an option. But overall, yeah, green is the worst color in this cube. There are a couple ways I try to compensate. I give green more 1-drops than any other color, because green in the old days was the color of fast mana as well as ramp. There are some good fatties, but you know what? Most fatties in this cube, on average, the green ones are the worst. Green is here as a sop to support the other colors. And why did I ding down green? Why did I make it the worst color in the cube? I'm going to tell you why. Historically, in the first 10 years of the game, green was the worst color. I'm sorry, green lovers, and I consider myself a lover of green, especially modern green. Wizards has figured out how to make green awesome. But for the first 10 years of Magic, green kind of sucked. And acknowledging that by making green an amplifier for other colors, but not so good in and of itself, that is my homage to the early history of Magic in this cube. Green, historically, for the first 10 years, it just couldn't compete with the other colors. The first real green deck that I remember being super awesome, okay, well, the first one I played, the first mono green deck I ever played was in Extended in 2000, Legion Landloss, although I was playing it in Japan, so I called it RRR, Region Randross, because transposition of L and R is my favorite joke ever. Yeah, so that was my first mono green deck, and since then I've played quite a few. The most dominant green deck in the early days of Magic was green-blue, which was the Flashback and Wild Mongrel Root Wall. It was the block deck from Odyssey Block. And that was really, in my opinion, the most dominant green deck in the early days of Magic. Nowadays, yeah, there's obviously a lot more. But this deck is kind of an homage to the B color. There are 4 A's in this cube. This one's a B. Sorry, green lovers, but I hope to have elucidated a bit of historical perspective in this cube. I may have blathered quite a while, but I hope you enjoyed it. This is Eli Kaplan for Ancestral Recall, signing off. Good games, and good luck.